Good afternoon to everyone who is tuning into this event today. My name is Jelica Vesic. I'm a communication officer at the Council of Europe Development Bank, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to this launch of the CEB Award for Social Cohesion, edition 2021. This is going to be a brief event, approximately 45 minutes, divided in three parts. First, we will hear from the CEB Governor, Mr. Rolf Wenzel, who is going to tell us a little bit about what this award represents and what were the driving forces behind it. We will then follow with the roundtable with the four distinguished speakers talking about the importance of social cohesion in this post-COVID landscape. And we also hope to hear some inspiring, some interesting examples of social action and innovation that have particularly marked our speakers during the last year. And then finally, we will also be talking about the rules of this competition. So we will tell you who can apply, what is the timeline, how the selection process works. And we saved a very sweet success story from our 2020 edition as the very last bit. So please make sure that you watch until the very end. And with this, it is my pleasure to give the floor to CEB Governor Rolf Wenzel, who is also the person behind the CEB Award idea. So, the Governor, please.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Vesic, and thank you all for joining us for this launch event. It's the second edition. It sounds a little bit like that we are publishing something, an edition, a book. It's a second edition of an exercise that we started indeed last year. And you might say, is it just one more award? Why is it a social cohesion? What is this all about? Well, first of all, why the focus on social cohesion? Well, that's our DNA. This is our mandate to promote social cohesion. And as a matter of fact, we have been doing it for 65 years. Yes, we celebrate this year 65 years of being in the game, so to speak, to promote social cohesion. And there have been many upheavals in Europe. We are a European bank. There have been many upheavals over the years, as I'm sure you are aware of. Let me just give you a couple of examples. The aftermath of World War II with destroyed cities, the need to reconstruct social infrastructure in many European countries, the fall of the Iron Curtain that had separated and divided Europe, the military conflict in the Western Balkans, the financial crisis of 2008, 2012 that created unemployment, erased and increased inequality, and the migrant and refugee crisis that hit Europe 2015, 2016, and which is not over yet, as we all know when we read the daily newspaper. And last year, and continuing into today, the COVID pandemic that creates not just a lockdown, which is unpleasant perhaps, but it also destroys working jobs. It destroys the family lives when people are dying, when friends, relatives are dying. It destroys livelihood. So clearly, there's a strong role, and there has been a strong role, and there continues to be a strong role for an institution that promotes social cohesion. Over the decades, we have made lots of experiences. We learned a lot. But one thing that we came across all the time, which is if you really want to have a long-lasting impact, if you want to help the most vulnerable, you also have to engage with individuals and institutions, because it's at the local level where most initiatives take place, and many times almost unnoticed, maybe just in a particular city or region, but not across. There is no learning by realizing, learning by seeing what others are doing. So how can you transfer, and how can you, and this is where we come in with our CEB Award, how can we award individual commitment, individual support for communities, or if you like, institutional support for communities which have a clear focus, as we have, promote social cohesion. So this is why we thought acknowledging this work, this important work, can be done best by having a CEB Award. So it's not just one more award, it's a special award for individuals and institutions. And we, all of us in the Council of Europe Development Bank, we count on you to help us identify individual or institutional support for social cohesion throughout 2020 or upcoming 2021. I know it will be challenging, but you have the support of our staff. But in the end, you have to select and you have to award. It's in your hands, with your knowledge, your experience, to award the prize to the best individual or to the best institution. So with that, no further ado, I give the floor to the panelists. And again, thank you very much in advance for the work that you have to undertake over the coming weeks and months. We count on you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Governor, for this introduction. And as you said, we have been championing social cohesion in Europe for 65 years, and we have helped our member countries weather many storms and many crises. But I think it is rare that we have seen a global event that has stretched the social fabric of our societies in quite such a way as the COVID pandemic has. We have seen social cohesion severely tested in all of our countries. And if we have learned one lesson, I think that has been that we can no longer take social cohesion for granted. So how do we promote it and how we support it? That is the topic of our roundtable today. And I'm very, very happy to introduce our speakers. Snezana Samardzic-Markovic, Director General of Democracy at the Council of Europe. Guillaume Capelle, a social entrepreneur, founder of SINGA and CALM. Dr. Matt Reed, Global Director of Institutional Partnerships at the Aga Khan Foundation, and also the CEO of Aga Khan Foundation UK, and Tomáš Boček, the Vice Governor for Target Group Countries at the CEB. So I suggest we start this discussion with Snezana. Snezana, tell us, the Council of Europe, how do you promote social cohesion? What does it mean to you?
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and my special thanks for Governor Wenzel and Vice Governor Boček for placing a trust in me to be also the president of the jury for the award. Now, what does social cohesion mean to me and to Council of Europe? When you look around us, and you said that, Jelice, too, COVID crisis has underlined some blind spots of our societies. If there are inequalities, if there is marginalization, there is polarization and inevitable weakening of democracy. So achieving social cohesion means giving every person the possibility to fully enjoy their fundamental rights, to have their dignity respected, and to play an active role in democratic societies. So strengthening social cohesion lies, as also Governor said, at the heart not only of the bank, but of Council of Europe's mandate. Our organization works closely in synergy with the Council of Europe Bank to enhance the capacity of our member countries to ensure the well-being of their populations, to reduce disparities and to avoid the marginalization that I mentioned in the beginning. And the question is probably how we do it. First of all, we set legal standards in the social field. From the point of view of social cohesion, perhaps the most relevant is the European Social Charter, because it guarantees a broad range of social and economic rights related to employment, to housing, health, education, social protection, welfare, etc. So the Charter gives specific emphasis on the protection of vulnerable people. Other important Council of Europe conventions or standards that I mentioned for the protection of vulnerable people include the Istanbul Convention on combating and preventing violence against women, then the Convention against trafficking in human beings, Convention for the protection of children, Framework Convention for the protection of national minorities, etc. But then we have these standards. What we do next is to monitor the adherence of our member states to these standards, and whenever we can, we also try to give them help in a way, assist them through different cooperation projects to achieve these standards. And there also, it is very, very important what the Council of Europe Development Bank is doing. It's providing financing for projects with a high social impact in its member states. And the bank also actively promotes social cohesion and strengthens social integration in Europe. So it's not just about money. It's about giving priority to these subjects. So to me, ultimately, bank promotes the values and principles of the Council of Europe too.
Thank you very much, Snezana. Let's move to Guillaume. Guillaume, you are from a completely different world as a social entrepreneur. So what is social cohesion for you, and what do you do to promote it?
Hi. Thank you again for having me in the jury this year. I'm actually glad, and I can't wait to discover the new project. I'm receiving a lot of text messages, so I'm guessing there is also in the room a lot of entrepreneurs that are coming from our incubators. So hello to you. SINGA is the name of my organization, and it means wire in Lingala. It's a social connector. So I guess social cohesion means a lot to us. SINGA is a global ecosystem for refugees and migrants inclusion that is in Europe and America. And we run incubators and platforms for 65,000 world citizens in 10 countries today. We are lucky to boost 100 new companies each year, basically, that enter this ecosystem. 100 companies, that means thousands of entrepreneurs. So it's pretty huge if you think about it. And we believe that entrepreneurship, tech, games, actually I believe games is very useful, and storytelling can reduce cultural distances that we have in our societies and build social cohesion. So that's the world that I'm coming from, and as I told you, I can't wait to discover the project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Guillaume. Matt, in your line of work, you are in contact with local communities around the world. So for Aga Khan Foundation, how do you understand social cohesion, and what do you do to promote it?
Well, thanks so much, and thank you very much for inviting me today to talk about this. I mean, the work around social cohesion is fundamental to what the Aga Khan Foundation has been doing for about 50 years. Our core approach everywhere we work, and we're present in Central and South Asia, Eastern Africa, a little bit in the Middle East and North Africa. Wherever we work, we start with community groups, representative groups that form organizations, and that means that they have to include men and women, Sunnis and Shias, Hindus and Muslims, tribals and Christians, you name it. Those groups come together and they identify common priorities. What are the common needs that they're all facing? They then prioritize those needs, and then we help them address those needs in a variety of ways, whether it's through rural development and agriculture, or access to finance, or small-scale infrastructure, education, health, etc. So across all of it is the building of civil society. And what we focus on, and here actually we work with many development banks around the world, is getting communities focused on particular projects. So rather than focusing on what divides them and trying to address it that way, we try to find a positive focus, a need that everyone agrees they need to address, a common approach to addressing it, and then delivering on that. Because ultimately what we have to show is that by working together, we can address people's most important needs. And so through the foundation and the other agencies of the Aga Khan Development Network, we focus on that sort of civil society building. And I think the other thing that's very important is that it's local ownership. So the things that we build together with those communities, they own and run when we step back. And so there's deep, deep ownership, and that's what brings that sense of togetherness and cohesion that we find is absolutely essential.
Thank you very much. Tomáš, of course, Council of Europe Development Bank is the social development bank in Europe, but not everyone is familiar with everything that we do. So perhaps you can elaborate on how we promote social cohesion.
Thank you, Jelica. And yeah, as Governor already mentioned, for CEB, the social cohesion is the alpha and omega of all its activities. It lies in, everything we do and translates into addressing and reducing inequalities, into facilitating and ensuring equal access to services and opportunities, into supporting gender equality, and so on. And as already mentioned also by the Governor, the CEB has been providing financial support to its now 42 European member countries for 65 years. And over time, it has diversified its activities and now tackles all social sectors, such as health and care, education, social housing. And also environment and climate action aspects are fundamentally linked to social action, since often affect vulnerable people the most. And so in 2020, we have launched a new fund, the Green Social Investment Fund, which the bank has endowed with 5 million euros and for which it is seeking additional contributions. And we launched this fund namely to help with the social affordability of environmental measures. And now a bit more concretely, how do we support social cohesion? The bank provides loans to countries at favorable terms to help finance projects which may not have seen the light otherwise, or might have costed more to a country and hence its people, with the focus on the most vulnerable population groups. And here we are talking about 77 billion euros since inception, including 6 billion euros in 2020. And in doing so, the bank applies its due diligence process and ensures that the projects are well designed and that the funds are allocated effectively. And the bank can also complement its loans with grants, often to support projects' implementation. So what else do we do to promote social cohesion? The bank partners with relevant institutions so as to advocate for sound policy and best practices. And I will mention only 3 examples just from the last quarter of the 2020. So we joined WHO's DECIDE network to help decision makers in health achieve best value for money in health choices and policies through data, analytics, and knowledge. We also signed a partnership with the EIB, Caisse de dépôt, and Union Sociale de l'Habitat to help finance social housing with a focus on young migrants, on migrant workers, on students. And finally, in the context of the Finance in Common Summit, we called on all public development banks, jointly with the Agence Française de Développement, and with the support of WHO and ILO, to form a coalition for social investment in order to contribute to address the underfinancing of the social sectors and reach the SDGs. And I will stop here because I see I'm running out of time.
Thank you, Tomáš, very much. Now, this award is about recognizing and awarding outstanding social action, right, across Europe. So let's change tack a little bit and talk about that. Let's talk about the examples of social action that have particularly inspired you in the course of last year. And, you know, what is some social innovation that you think we should be seeing more of? I suggest we start with Snezana again.
for this privilege again to speak first. Well, when it comes to Council of Europe, I am also obliged to mention that we, for example, redirected one big project that we work together with European Union on Roma issues. You know, usually it's about standards, capacity building of member states, how can they help Roma, etc., in better integration. But due to the COVID, we had to completely change the approach and try to reach Roma communities, individual Roma communities in given countries. I mean, for us, it was quite an innovation knowing how big an organization we are and how much we had to change in our procedures, etc., etc. But I know it's probably not that interesting for your public because it's about standard setting. It's a different institution, as a matter of fact. However, I had to name, if I have to name one, I hope you will not mind me mentioning the one that inspired me personally, and I hope you don't mind that I choose the action by our bank. Because in this severe pandemic, coupled with the persisting economic crisis, what the bank did, the Council of Europe Development Bank, it approved a record number of projects totaling more than 6 billion euros, as Tomáš said. And half of this amount directly financed emergency projects to improve healthcare and to maintain jobs in the countries that were most severely impacted by COVID. So coming to the social innovation, I would like to see more of it. And it would be increasing support to women's entrepreneurs, mainly those with the immigration background, which also the bank did. Despite all the progress made in several societies, women still must fight hard to find the place they deserve, starting from education to accessing the labor market. And if a woman comes from an ethnic or linguistic minority, or is a refugee, a migrant, or simply a single mother, the difficulties facing her can be or can look insurmountable. So other innovations in the social field could concern the financing of projects specifically targeting victims of domestic violence, which also bank is doing, or trafficking, as well as helping young people in disadvantaged neighborhoods to improve their living conditions. This is about social cohesion. So organizations like the Council of Europe and the Bank, of course, they have both the responsibility and recognized expertise to deal with these issues. So it is true that several programs are already being implemented in a number of member states. However, the size of the challenge requires a stronger commitment, which is conducive to sustainable results if we really want to improve the life of people in these categories. And I know also that the bank is now organizing training for member states to better be able to use the projects. So, in short, I would welcome the idea of having the Council of Europe Development Bank encourage member states to submit more projects aimed at supporting such vulnerable persons, especially in less developed regions, and to work out modalities to make such projects financially feasible.
Thank you very much, Snezana. I hope representatives of our member states are tuned in today and are listening. So, Tomáš, what about you? Social action that inspired you in 2020?
Well, I see that we got with Snezana the same inspiration because actually, yeah, me too. I found it quite amazing how the CEB has responded to the COVID crisis in 2020. And, you know, while having to adapt to 100% remote work, which is far from usual habits, staff has adapted remarkably well, working tirelessly and with high motivation. And, you know, the CEB was among the first IFIs to respond to the crisis, with a timely, flexible, targeted approach, and allowing us to respond to emergency needs and help mitigate the health and economic and social fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic, which, as we know, has affected the most vulnerable disproportionately. There was reduced access to education or work linked to lower computer literacy or lack of equipment. There were risk of exclusion for isolated people, homeless in particular. And when it comes to social innovation, well, first of all, let's acknowledge that the pandemic has forced us all to adapt, and there has been a lot of initiatives across the board showing how resilient people and our societies can be. And keeping in mind that the degraded economic situation of many people as a result of COVID is a huge challenge, of course, with the widening inequality gap. And at the local level, we have seen many cities come up with all sorts of schemes to support, in particular, the youth, the elderly, or the poorest. And there are many examples. And I would here refer to a series of interviews of mayors on our website, and I will choose only two of them. The first one would be which is called the Adopt a Grandparent. This is an initiative in Tirana, in Albania, where youngsters volunteered and supported their lonely elderly neighbors by sharing a home-cooked meal or offering to deliver their groceries. And the second one is in Turku in Finland, where children could retrieve their school lunches from their respective schools, which helped strengthening the connection during remote teaching. Often social innovation comes in the form of rather simple ideas. So the merit lying in the fact that they have been implemented. So I would actually be curious to see more innovation in terms of social innovation. And on that, maybe I would like to hear from others what they have seen or done, maybe Matt with the Aga Khan Foundation or Guillaume, who is a social entrepreneur.
Well, thank you very much, Tomáš, and thanks for doing my job. So, Matt, please, your examples of social action and innovation.
Thanks so much. I actually have two. One is a kind of more macro one, which is that I think it's one of the things that has really struck me during the crisis has actually to do with the way the scientific community globally has demonstrated a sort of social cohesion and a togetherness that we have not seen maybe in recent times as much as we'd like to. And I think the example that you see across epidemiologists, geneticists, social anthropologists, behavioral scientists, geneticists, etc., the work to understand the virus, understand how it's transmitted, get the word out on how people can keep themselves safe and help their neighbors stay safe, work on the vaccine is quite extraordinary. To some degree, I wish that institutions had learned that lesson a bit earlier. I think it's coming around to it. And so I don't want to say that the international response has not demonstrated the same level of solidarity, but I think we can all agree that some of it has been a bit belated. And I'm delighted that Europe has taken such a lead, actually, in promoting that kind of solidarity. And so then if I come down to a more micro level inside the foundation, one of the things that I've been struck by with us is we work with 60,000 community organizations every year around the world. And that is a long-term investment in a kind of foundation of civil society. And what those organizations were able to do right away when this began happening and when that network of epidemiologists and others began to get the word out on how the virus is spread, what the dangers are to communities, those groups, 60,000 of them in the countries where we're working, were able to immediately mobilize over 2 million people to spread the word to in the remotest parts of Afghanistan or Kenya, to tell people how they could stay safe, what they needed to do, what was the right kind of information they needed to pay attention to, and what was the wrong kind of information that was being spread on social media or the like. And I think it's that glue amongst people, undergirded by institutions, that I have seen make a real difference. And for me, it underscores how important it is to make these kinds of investments in those social institutions, the institution of civil society, over the long term, so that we're ready when crises like this happen.
Guillaume, what would be your examples? What has inspired you last year?
I guess a lot of different initiatives by entrepreneurs that we know and how they've been able to adapt in this very difficult situation. And if I have to choose one, I'm thinking about Banlieue Santé, who translated health recommendations during the pandemic in Arabic, Swahili, Lingala, a lot of different languages spoken by immigrants in France, to give access to information to everyone and to protect everybody. And I really liked social innovation for some that actually benefits many. You choose a specific group, but it has an impact on many more people in society. So I guess this would be also the kind of innovation with a multi-impact that I would be looking for in 2021. And I guess just like Snezana, Tomáš, and Matt, I'm also going to talk about my own organization, because I've been pretty impressed but by what teams around the network have been able to do. And especially there is one project that I really love, which is called Allo Mondo. We started the year with a new platform for events. So basically we were planning 4,000 events with thousands of people who were going to meet in real life. And so, as you can imagine, in February we stopped everything. So this was 1/3 of our activity, so 1/3 of our staff. So it was kind of it was very difficult for us, and everybody started to look for solutions. So we digitalized a bit of this activity, but we also invented a new product. And that product is Allo Mondo, and it's a platform that serves people from different backgrounds to have conversations about how they would like to change the world together. And so we had people coming from all backgrounds starting to imagine how they could change the world. And this creates a bridge that you usually don't have in society, because you're always in the same cycles. You always create innovation with people that look like you. And this was a space to actually imagine the future with people that are completely different from you. And that's it. I think I would love to see innovations like this also in 2021, that actually create a bridge with people that you would not usually meet.
Thank you so much, Guillaume. This is a very inspired response. We have time for one more question. This one is a little bit personal. And so if you can try to respond to it, like, maybe in one word or like, 1 minute at most, which is basically, what do you expect from 2021? Sous-entendu, what do you hope for in 2021? And I'm going to continue with this blatant favoritism and ask Snezana to be the first.
Thanks, that's very kind. Well, I would like to remember this time not only as a time of crises, challenges, and transition, but maybe as a period where we, as a generation in a way, left something valuable and important for the post-COVID era, some achievements that we should be proud of when we look back at this time. Maybe it's ambitious, but this is what I would very much like.
Thank you, Snezana. What about you, Matt? Expectations?
Well, you asked my personal hope. My personal hope is that I can actually move from this spot. You're in my living room where I've been since March, and I feel like I've got roots now here. So I'm hoping very much that later on in the year, with vaccines and the rest, I can move. But speaking more seriously, what I really hope and what I think that we are going to see is much greater international cooperation around the response to this pandemic. And I think that, as I said, Europe has really led the way on this in the past 6 to 8 months. we now have a new administration in the United States that is recommitting itself to that same kind of international cooperation. And I think that sends a powerful signal. I'm certainly a hopeful one. Let's hope that we're able to coordinate our actions the way that we need to this year. But that's why I think events like this, talking about social cohesion and the things that we can do together to address this crisis, are so important.
Guillaume, what about you?
In one word, switch. I would like to see court and arbitration decisions, laws, investment and loans, subventions and philanthropy, innovation in institutions and companies that clearly show a switch. Because I believe we have 10 years to change our way of life, and it starts now. So we need to understand that conversation is key, that key is open cultures, that culture can be exchanged, that identity is dynamic, that nature is limited, that ability is the new framework, that performance should serve impact, that impact should be valued financially, that finance need to have conversation with people on the ground, and that we need to switch. So when I see that CEB is actually talking directly to social entrepreneurs across Europe, I believe we start to switch.
Thank you, Guillaume. And Tomáš?
Well, in one word, I would say rebuilding, because I hope we will manage to start already this year to start a post-COVID period, and so rebuilding what has been frozen, broken, or even destroyed by the COVID and related measures taken, and I mean relations, confidence, economics, in short, normal life.
Thank you. And thank you all. It was really a pleasure talking to you. We are approaching the final part of this event. So let me recap a little bit the rules of the CEB Award for Social Cohesion. First of all, who can apply? Individuals over the age of 18 and small organizations from any one of our 42 member countries in Europe. What we're looking for is a project at an early stage. So more than just an idea, the project needs to have started. And in fact, we are hoping that with this award, we can provide it a boost that can, take it to the next level. We will be accepting applications until the 12th of April. After that, a group of 4 colleagues from the CEB will carefully examine all the nominations and will draw up a short list of 5 projects. After that, we will have a meeting of our jury, our international jury of experts, which consists of 5 experts from different fields, which will, in the end, choose the final winner. And the winner will walk away with 25 euros in a prize and a trophy. We will recap all of this information in a follow-up email to all the participants of today's event. Meanwhile, of course, you can also visit the award.coebank.org and follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn, where we will be posting regular updates throughout the duration of this competition. And as promised at the beginning, we would like to share a sweet success story about one of the winner of last year's competition, which is a small social enterprise from Croatia. You will understand why this is such a sweet story when you see it in a few seconds. But before that, thank you very much for watching, and have a nice afternoon.
Osnivanju Hedone prethodio je projekt Udruge osoba s invaliditetom Križevci iz 2012. godine pod radnim nazivom Čokolaterija Kriz s osnovnim ciljem zapošljavanja osoba s invaliditetom koji su teško zapošljivi na tržištu rada.
Glavni cilj Hedone je definitivno zaposliti što više osoba s invaliditetom. Trenutno imamo 23 zaposlene osobe u Hedoni i stalno rastemo.
Ekipa je odlična, svi se dobro slažemo. Zadovoljstvo nam je raditi u Hedoni.
I jako volimo jesti čokolade.
Prezadovoljne smo.
Da.
Upravo su završeni radovi na opremanju novog prostora i jučer smo se preselili. Jako smo sretni zbog toga.
Ja sam Kristina Topić, imala sam 53 godine da se radim.
Izuzetno sam zadovoljan, rade oni, vole svoj posao, jedva čekaju doći na posao. Evo, rade sa osmijehom. Radimo vrhunskom tehnikom i radimo s ljubavlju, sa srcem i radimo vrhunski proizvod.
Ova nagrada nam je definitivno jako puno pomogla jer smo na taj način omogućili zapošljavanje još osoba s invaliditetom i proširenje poslovanja.
Volim čokoladu i izdaje mi osmijeh na licu.
U sklopu Hedone prije 3 godine otvorili smo Čokobar, to je kafić gdje se može probati naše proizvode, gdje se može degustirati poznata topla čokolada.
Naši radnici su osobe sa invaliditetom, međutim ja ih doživljavam kao punopravne članove društva i kao radnike.
Sretni smo.
Marljivi smo.
Vrijedni smo.
Originalni smo.
Uspješni smo.